What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So we're moving right along here in our journey to Scream 7 coming out in a couple weeks, and today we're going to be reviewing what a lot of people would consider to be the worst Scream film, Scream 3. Do I personally think it's the worst? I'm going to get to that in just a second, but just a friendly reminder before we get started, this is like the other films, and like pretty much all of them except for when I get to Scream 7 are going to be spoiler filled. So if you haven't seen this film, just like the other ones, go back, watch it, enjoy it, and then come back and we'll talk some spoilers. So kind of going off of that, I just want to say kind of what I mentioned earlier, this is a lot of people's least favorite Scream movie, and to be completely honest with you, I see where they're coming from and I kind of have to agree with them. That said, I don't think it's a bad film. In fact, can keep in mind at the time of doing this video, I've only seen the first 4 Screams, but I don't think any of these films are bad films per se, but I do think of at least the first 3 movies, Scream 3 by far has the most wrong with it and the most going against it than the first 2. What does work for the film is that I do think this was a very satisfying conclusion to this first trilogy of films. If you've seen the film, you'll know what I'm talking about, but it definitely feels like this movie was meant to be basically the ending of the entire franchise. That might explain why it was an almost 11-year gap between Scream 3 and Scream 4, almost like Hollywood said, hey, these movies are making money, keep making more movies. But it looks like with Scream 3, or when Scream 3 was written, it was intended to be the final installment. And it really shows in this movie. There's a lot here that really works. There's some very satisfying character arcs for both Sidney Prescott and her journey and her internal struggles and demons, as well as for Gail. She also has a really great arc going from this very narcissistic, we have to cover the story no matter the cost reporter, to somebody who actually cares, somebody who's becoming more of an asset to our main characters, and she's actually become what was a pretty unlikable character in the first film to a really likable fan favorite by the time you get to Scream 3. So both of them in particular just have really strong character arcs. They feel logical and fulfilling, and that they've moved their characters in a very meaningful direction that a lot of fans, I'm sure myself included, are very satisfied with and would be very satisfied with. And kind of going off of that, I will say that the fact that this movie takes place on an actual movie set is really cool. It's a fun change of tone from the first 2, whereas the first 2 parody films, this one delves right into it. And I'll get to in a second why that might kind of be to its detriment, but I do like how this movie is kind of tackling the 3rd Stab movie, which if you guys haven't been keeping up, that's the basically Scream series inside the Scream series. It's the big horror film based off of the Woodsboro murders, which of course are referring to the events in the first film. And it definitely, you know, in terms of what it kind of talks about, it's a lot of meta commentary, as you could imagine, on trilogies, a lot of comparison to like The Godfather Part 3, Return of the Jedi, and the like. There's a lot of kind of how do you follow the rules of trilogies, nobody's safe, even the main protagonist could die. So they play into that really, really well. And just again, I think it's a really fun change of pace to actually have this take place inside a Stab movie set, which is of course mimicking the first Scream movie. So it's just really cool the way that they tie it together in that manner. And kind of lastly here, I do think the reveal of Ghostface is just one this time, which I think was much needed. You know, if you've seen my Scream 2 review, I feel like they could have just done the I believe her name was Nancy Loomis. They could have just done her as Ghostface and it would have worked. They didn't need to add the other guy. And here they just have one Ghostface, which again I think was a smart move. This time it's Roman Bridger, and he's revealed to of course be Ghostface, as well as Sidney's like half brother, and also the orchestrator of pretty much the Billy and Stu murders, as well as the Nancy one and the, well, not so much Nancy, I guess, the other guy, I'm blanking on his name, in Scream 2. So he's kind of the mastermind. He's kind of the, you know, Palpatine or Thanos, whatever you want to call him, to put it in more modern pop culture terms. He's kind of been the one pulling the strings from behind. And I did think that that was a really cool way to kind of tie everything together. I did appreciate kind of seeing that development. He's actually in the film a lot more than the guy in Scream 2, which again kind of helped you out. He's actually, you know, was supposed to be the movie director, actor. So it just really works, and I feel like they set him up a lot better here than they did with the other guy in Scream 2, and I hate that I'm blanking on this name. But yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts, and that's really what I think works best about this film. And then kind of going into what doesn't work best, I feel like the writers here, for one, they seem to try to make Sidney's IQ whatever the plot needs at the moment. And what I mean by that is it almost feels like there's moments in this film where Sidney does like the most smart thing ever to avoid Ghostface during a chase sequence, and then she'll just do something really dumb and stupid in the next scene, and you're just kind of like, where's the consistent logic here with this character? And there's just a, there was a little bit of that in Scream 2, but I feel like it's a lot more amplified this time around. And I will say, kind of what I hinted at earlier, this is this movie, because it takes place on a movie set, it naturally lends itself to kind of feeling more like a parody, even more than the other two. And that can kind of lend itself to feeling a lot more cheesy than I think the Wes Craven and the writers intended it to be. I don't think they meant for it to almost come off as a parody as much as it was supposed to be a satire in a way, kind of like the first two were. But that's kind of what it almost gets into here, and there's just some really cheesy moments, some very shoddy moments in action scenes where I'm just kind of like the scene where Ghostface throws the knife and it hits Dewey, and like the back of it hits Dewey. It just looks very almost Looney Tunes-esque at times, and I think that's one of the biggest drawbacks, especially in the third act, is when you really notice it. That kind of took me out of the movie quite a bit. And I will say probably its biggest flaw of all is the fact that it really explores way too many ideas in this movie. There's the whole theme of Sidney's trauma and trying to get over the events that she's been through in the first two films. There's additionally the commentary on Sidney's mom, and kind of the way in which her mom played a big factor into obviously the Ghostface killer being her brother and her mom's son, of course. And just the way that, she was an actor who was abused on set. There's just all of this stuff going on while it's also trying to add that meta commentary that I kind of mentioned earlier on trilogies. And it just makes it feel a lot less streamlined than its predecessors. Whereas its predecessors told a very focused story. It's a whodunit mystery that plays on the tropes of the horror genre. This one, again, being a Marvel guy, I'll put it in some Marvel terms. It feels a lot like kind of what they did with Spider-Man 3 or X-Men The Last Stand, where they kind of just introduced too many ideas to where the actual plot just doesn't feel streamlined enough, and it just feels like they're going way too out there in terms of, we're just throwing things at the wall, we're trying to make this big, bombastic, and the grandest Scream film yet, when it didn't really need to be. And so I think it's flaws like this that, while I do enjoy Scream 3, I think, again, like all of these films that I've seen at least, they're all very fun, watchable films. I mean, Scream 3 is a much better sequel than like half of the sequels that come out today. It's still a good movie, but when you're comparing it to, again, like I've said many times in these reviews, Scream is probably my favorite horror slasher film of all time, and Scream 2 was a really great follow-up as well. Going off of those two films, you really just feel the kind of setback even more with this. But overall, it's still a good movie, like I said. I think most people that would watch this movie through today's lens would enjoy it, would appreciate the commentary on trilogies and sequels in general. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Again, it's a very fun movie. Go watch it. Go have a good time. But just don't expect anything quite as masterful as the first movie in particular, but even the second film in terms of its quality. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for my thoughts on Scream 3. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you one of the few people that would maybe rank Scream 3 as one of the best Scream movies, or are you kind of like me and a lot of other people and it's ranked either last or definitely close to the bottom, but you still enjoy it, or do you just absolutely hate the film? Let me know that as well. And just let me know, and as always, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video, and we will catch you all later.